All right, welcome to another political episode of Political Animals. Let's jump straight into it. I think we've been supposedly ceasefire for the past 11 days, but no surprise that Israel has broken it. They've killed, I think, up to 100 people so far. Kunle, how many have they killed?
They killed 100 people during this so-called period of ceasefire.
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
last 72 hours, they killed. They've
yeah.
been killing. They killed about 40 people 2 days ago, then about 30 yesterday, and about
Yeah.
11 today.
And what they're calling it is they're calling it an enforcement of the ceasefire because they're saying that Hamas boys are shooting at them and things like that. They'll find any excuse. Whether or not they're telling the truth doesn't matter because whether or not Hamas boys are shooting at them or not, looking at the history of Israel, of what they've been doing to Syria, what they've been doing to Iran, and what they've been doing to Gaza, they'll always find some excuse to continue. So we don't need to judge the verity of whether that's the case. They call it. But what I'm arguing is that this ceasefire is is not an end of the occupation of Gaza. I know the U.S. and these countries have the Abraham Accords in which Gaza is supposed to become a technocratic state. But in reality, if it's a technocratic state, it's still going to be cleared of people who are Palestinian and Arabs, and it's going to be used for a lot of land for people from the West and from Israel, luxury apartments and stuff like that. And meanwhile, during this so-called ceasefire, settlers, this is a more troubling situation. Settlers are taking more and more land in Palestine, not Gaza, in Palestine, beating up women and children and taking their land. So all I'm saying is that this ceasefire is just a slowdown of the continual occupation and settling of Palestine and Gaza. Netanyahu has no intention of letting Palestine or Gaza be a what you call it, a sovereign nation. Even if they're a nation, it'll just be in name only, controlled by Israel. What are your thoughts, Kunle?
Yes, we've beaten around the bush on this. We've beaten this topic many, many times over the years. This so-called ceasefire, I don't believe it. I might now believe that the only way that you can have peace in the Middle East is for Israel as a state not to exist anymore on the premise that no apartheid state should be allowed to exist in the 21st century. Which is very sad. That I understand it's more than 100 people actually. Only on between the 18th and 20th, 47 people were killed, and I think today about another 48 deaths were reported on the 21st
Yeah,
by the BBC. So that's really appalling. That's really
yeah.
appalling.
Okay, you're doing okay, but your volume is a little bit low. I don't know if you maybe come closer to the computer, but it's fine. So yeah, so they're continuing I mean, your connection is good. The volume is a little bit low. They're continuing killing people, this is the strategy that Israel will always use. They'll justify the killing by saying that the other side is breaking the ceasefire, the other side is out to get Israel, the other side is encroaching. They're killing Palestinians inside of Gaza. So they are in an occupied land. So what they're doing is as an invading force, they're killing Palestinians inside there, and they're using the justification of October the 7th. This is going to be the last time I say this. October the 7th was a strike against Israel. It wasn't a terrorist attack in a war that's been going on since the 1940s, 1950s, in which the Palestinians and the Arabs are saying, no, you have to leave our land. So that justification they use is not going to count. What's happening is that Israel is a white settler nation and they don't want a two-state solution because a two-state solution means that they don't hold the land in Palestine and Gaza. They want one state from the sea. What they say, Palestine shall be free from the river. What is it? The river to the sea. Israel wants to occupy the river, the sea, the West Bank, everywhere, Gaza. They want that, and so Israel wants a one-state nation. So if Israel is for a two-state nation, they'll be for it so long as it's in the desert. So that can be the country for Gaza and Palestine. They want Palestine, the second state, to be in the Sinai Desert, or they just go to Egypt. What are your thoughts on that point?
I think they want to ethnically cleanse the Gazans of in the region of that area. That's ultimately what they want to do. And unless an international United Nations force is put in there, those people are going to get wiped out. I don't see any other end to it. And they're still killing them almost the same rate. I think, before it was averaging 50 to 100, now it's 30. I mean, that's not, they're still killing them. And it's women and children they're still killing. They're not killing combatants in armed fights. They're launching strikes at civilians and saying that Hamas is hiding behind them, and then just telling lies to justify what they're doing, which is lies. And October 7 was a forced flag attack, just like when the Germans killed some Polish soldiers and dressed them up, or when or Pearl Harbor, or 9/11. Although Pearl Harbor was not, Pearl Harbor was sort of like, we know they're coming, but we'll let them do their work.
Yeah, it's a false flag. It's a false flag. Yeah, but, they lured them in. Same thing, because we're going to end because we don't want to go off topic, but it's very clear that even if Hamas is a true resistance organization, parts of Hamas are under the payroll of Netanyahu. So in other words, I'm not saying he did. He might have even said, yo, come and attack us now on October the 7th so I can have my next. So what I'm trying to say is Hamas has been infiltrated by the Mossad, because a lot of the actions Hamas is taking, like October the 7th, Israel wanted it to happen so that they could ramp up what they were doing. I'm not saying that Hamas is an agent of the West, but part of it is functioning that way because they've shown, you've heard about it, the paper trail that shows that.
It's very possible because a Mossad agent was found infiltrating Hezbollah a couple of days ago. He was found. So
they said that
possible.
Israeli government has been funding Hamas too. This is how it's crazy politics. I'm not saying that all of Hamas, but what I'm trying to say is that even if Hamas is a liberation fund, they may not even realize that the money that's coming to them is coming from the West, because the West wants to use them and say, hey, they're terrorists. Perfect example is that the U.S. built Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda attacked the U.S., and the U.S. used that attack to go to Iraq. You see what I'm trying to say? So even though... French company. Yeah, because think, if you're Al-Qaeda, you're buying, or if you're Hamas, you're buying weapons probably from the West or from China, and they say, here are your weapons. And they don't realize that what's funding that is the people who want you to fight and do certain things so they can have a justification for attacking back. Which is why I'm going to end with this. If Palestine really wants to be free, the young men in that country can drop the name Hamas and just say, we are Palestine and we are fighting for freedom. Every young man in Palestine should pick up a gun, or I guess they can use Hamas. But what I'm trying to say is there has to be a collective movement throughout all of Gaza. We can't say Palestine because they're surrounded by Israel, but in Gaza, they need to declare themselves as a formal military. And the problem is, where would they get their funding? Maybe they need to talk to China behind the doors. What are your last thoughts on that, Kunle?
Yeah, I think all this focusing on Hamas is pretty much a farce, because it's a natural human reaction to defend yourself when you're under attack. Before Hamas, it was the PLO, and there's always going to be something. So if I was Hamas, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to dismantle Hamas, because I know in 5 minutes another resistance group is going to be formed. It's going to be called Fuck James.
You know what it is? So because of time, we have to end. But what really has to happen then is the young men in Palestine need to keep fighting. But this war won't end until Americans and Israelis and European citizens say we've had enough, put sanctions on Israel. That's the only thing that's good. And also Qatar and those countries, all of them have to come together. But it's only going to happen when their populations put pressure on them, which is beginning to happen. People in Qatar say, we don't like seeing other Muslims being killed like this. People in America, France, and it's already starting. So I think we would agree that this war will end when there's a critical mass of people around the world who've had enough of it. So let's go to the next one.